It is started now. So this is the Colony Park Interdepartmental Interagency Meeting. The subject this month is Project Management Coordination. And this is June 9th, is that correct? Yeah, June 9th, 2020. I'm Martin Barrera. I'm the Economic Development Department Project Manager for the Colony Park Sustainable Community. The agenda, I'll copy it into the chat. It's probably the easiest way. I shared it yesterday, but it's relatively brief, so that way we can refer to it in the chat if needed, and hopefully that formats well. So welcome and introductions we've done. Colony Park Master Development Update. Since the last time we met, which was in for project management coordination purposes, the City of Austin has signed the exclusive negotiating agreement with Catellus, because the last time we met for project management coordination was in April. And May 12th, that was executed, and that ended the solicitation period, and it also authorized Catellus to begin a new phase of work in terms of revisiting the land planning and the economics. And we have a scope of work that the city staff, the developer, that the engagement staff, the planning and engineers, consultants will take on over summer and early fall, with the goal of taking a recommendation to council October 29th of 2020. And those recommendations will be in broad categories, such as updating the land planning and the PUD zoning, investigating or exploring options for capital improvement projects with other departments, and then also investigating, exploring public and private finance options. And so there may be, as we were discussing earlier, a good reason for us to meet in months when we don't normally meet, where we have some opportunity to provide an update to the community or coordinate with other project managers and engagement staff and other departments and agencies. And when I think that is good for my update. If anybody has any questions.
Okay, I don't have any questions, Martin, but I noticed that you sent the minutes out last night.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if anybody really had time to look at them. I didn't get a chance to look at them until just before the meeting, so I don't know if anybody had any corrections. But in the chat, I'm asking that those minutes be sent out at least a week before the meetings. That way everybody will have a chance to look at them. And then on your agenda, you sent the draft out. So are we still working from the draft that you sent out last night? Or what? Also, we didn't ask anything about the minutes, so we don't know if anybody had any problems with the minutes.
All right. If I agree that those were sent out late. I was just reviewing the setup for today, just going through my items, and I realized I hadn't sent that out, so I sent that out late, and those should at least be sent out the week before. Agreed on that and the agenda, and so I will certainly be doing that in the future. The minutes were shared with everyone via email, and if there are any staff and participants would review that and send us any updates to those minutes, we can redistribute those.
Okay, thank you. And I think I think it says Community Park Community Update. We are still sending messages back and forth with AISD on the hotspots that's needed in the area. I think Ms. Williams with Barbara Jordan has gotten with her supervisor to get some more hotspots approved, and so that's a good thing. Also, we received some information. Mitzi is going to be on a virtual meeting on a panel for LBJ on June 11th at 6:30. And the topic is going to be on everything that's going on in the community right now, how it is affecting our campus and our students, the community. And so I posted that on Nextdoor as well. Trying to get to it to tell you some other people that's going to be on there. I know John Bailey is going to be on there. Sherwin Patton will be on there. Ray Jackson, who is at LBJ Early College High School. Jeremy, I think that's Hardeman, Austin Police Department. Chaz Moore, Austin Justice Coalition. Jamal Fenner, who is the head coach at LBJ. John Fletcher is at LBJ. Devon Odoms, St. James Baptist Church. Antoine Thompson, LBJ Early College. And our own Mitzi Wright, John Bailey, Adrian Williams, and Sheila Henry. And that is going to be a Zoom meeting. We also are going to have, we had a meeting with the University of Texas on the video conference. And so we are going to meet with them, I think, June 18th at 11 o'clock. They are still very much interested in the project, and we are too on doing that video chat. Also, and this reminds me that I need to contact Mr. James with the PART department to make sure that we have 2 vans for this Saturday's community ride through. We had to cancel that ride through, but again, we want to make it available. Anybody who is interested in coming out and seeing the Colony Park Lakeside community, we're going to have 2 vans. We figured that would be the best way to do it. And that way we could separate people in the vans instead of trying to have everybody closed in cars with everybody. So if you're interested, let us know. Mr. Gray came out and Mitzi gave him a personal tour. And so we were really pleased with that. I think he gets what we're trying to say most of the time about our community and how we feel about our community. So that was really good. We also had a meeting with Dr. Cortez, help me out, Preston with
Neighborhood Partnering Program.
Neighborhood Partnering Program on how we would be able to put lights on the path that is going to be on the Colony Loop entrance, where they're making another entrance into the park and into the school. I also suggested to him that maybe he could contact AISD and see if they would be interested in partnering with us as well, since this will also provide safe access for the kiddos that are walking up to the school. I believe that's all that I have to report. Mitzi, have I forgotten anything?
Not that I can think of. You're always very thorough.
I try.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Cortez, did I leave off anything that I was supposed to? Okay. All right. I think that's all I have to report. I'm gonna take my camera off for a minute. My dog is giving me a bark that somebody is coming in my yard. So I will be right back.
Okay. All right. Next up on the agenda is community engagement update. So I'll set the floor for you guys. David, Laura. Anybody else working in engagement?
Ready for me, David, or do you want to do a little intro on what we've been working on? We're good?
Why don't you go ahead? I'm like holding down daddy duties and trying to stay focused. And right now the daddy duties are kind of winning.
I
So
hear you.
so I apologize. But Dr. Cortez, I think he's about to break something. Let me go figure this out. Dr. Cortez, you got it.
Okay, thank you, David.
Right.
Just a little update for everyone. So we have met with Catalyst. I don't know if Jessica's on or Sergio, but we had an opportunity to meet with them last week. And we're kind of getting together a timeline. For those of you that have joined us, we are kind of entering this next phase now that the ENA has been signed, and it's working through what engagement looks like. So we've been working with Ms. Scott, we've been working with David, Sergio, and the Catalyst team, Jessica and Greg Weaver, and we're trying to put together something so that we can share and get a final plan together. So we have another meeting today at 12:30 to kind of go over that. So that's been great. We're moving forward and making strides on the engagement plan. Food access, and Carol, it's been great working with you. We're moving forward on different ideas. We had a great meeting. The last meeting, I shared a little bit about the food access, the Capital Metro collaboration. That's gone really well. The intention was that we were using Cap Metro Access to deliver food directly in Colony Park, and June was kind of our cutoff time to try to see how many families we could get, and we got up to 55. So we're really excited about that. They're now moving into how can we provide Wi-Fi access to families, which Ms. Scott shared, and that is having, where should we put the buses? So the best place to put the buses where families need it. So we created a survey so families could respond and tell us areas where they were seeking and in need of Wi-Fi. So we're still working on that piece. We've been learning a lot about how the Central Texas Food Bank surveys locations, and we've been part of a process that is still ongoing. You heard me talk about this last month, but we are very close to getting a food distribution site at the Expo Center for a late distribution in June or July. The team is actually going out this week to survey. They have the capacity to serve about close to 2,000 people. And so some of you have heard me talk about on the conversations that the area around Colony Park has been their highest attendance. And so we talked to them about actually having a distribution in the Decker Corridor, East MOK Loyola. They were on board, and that is progressing forward. So I think the next phase would be, it will be going to the Commissioner's Court for a final vote to get it approved. And so I think the Central Texas Food Bank wants to propose a couple of dates so we don't have to extend it too far. So hopefully June and July. We're also working on the newsletter, and I'll just give my community engagement update, Laura Toops, on this one. We're working on a newsletter for Colony Loop Drive. We're drafting some of that information, and Christine Frendel, I'll probably be reaching out to you on some of the great work you've done for the maps and some descriptions that we could incorporate into our newsletter. So we're working on that. We're hoping to get a draft out mid-July for everyone. And then the e-newsletter goes out tomorrow. Again, thank you to all the partners and everyone who's contributed to the e-newsletter. It seems to be we're getting in a rhythm, and it seems to be getting much longer with resources, but we're happy to put it out. In the development phase, as we're kind of moving towards the October date, we may be considering some special editions of the e-newsletter. And we'll come to the interdepartmental meeting and let you guys know. I know a lot of times we don't have monthly updates, and that's fine. But what we do want to do is keep folks involved in what's happening with the developer. So we may be considering some special editions, which may mean we'll be running the e-newsletter monthly. So we're excited about that. We don't have to put a ton of content in there, but it's one of our main resources that we get information out to the community. And then the last thing we're working on this week is to share. Capital Metro is providing or free ride shares to folks that are unemployed. And Ms. Scott, did you get the flyer?
I did.
Okay, so we're actually incorporating that and hopefully sharing it on our social media. We know a lot of families are now starting to go back to work, and we want them to know that they do have the resource of having their fares paid for. So we worked on getting a flyer prepared with Capital Metro so we could get that out to families in the Colony Park area. So all going well on our end. If anyone has any questions for us or ideas or feedback, we're here to hear them.
Okay, and Dr. Cortez, you are passing that information on to me when you get flyers or whatever, so I can try and post it on our Facebook.
Yes. So
Okay.
I haven't posted the one that they sent to you for Capital Metro. We're getting ready to do that on Facebook.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Take a look here. Our next section for the agenda are updates from the team. I think what I'll try to do is, and I'll try to do this as best I can, but just go down the list and try to identify organizations, and then allow everybody who's attending from that organization to give an update, and rather than individual people. But if that doesn't work, we'll just go back to doing individual people, and then we'll see if this works fine. So starting with Office of Sustainability.
Hi, Caitlin Admire again. I don't think I saw Mark on here. So this being my first meeting, I don't have any updates necessarily, but I know where to email you if I do have some. Yeah,
Mark usually talks about climate change and the effect of the built environment on climate change.
Okay.
And I don't know, maybe in lieu of an update, and some people may not understand what the Office of Sustainability does. Maybe just to give an update on that.
Yeah, I'll give you guys the elevator pitch for the Office of Sustainability. So we are an office of, so not a department, meaning we do a lot of work with multiple departments across the city, just trying to instill sustainability and sustainable practices both within the city operations themselves. And I believe that's kind of how we started. We were actually trying to make the city operations themselves more sustainable, and we're now doing more community-based work. So right now we are in the middle of updating our community climate plan, which does a lot more carbon related strategies for the wider community in Austin as well as city. That's kind of our big thing that we're focusing on now. We're a small office, we're like 10 people, but we collaborate with pretty much every department across the city. So we've got focuses on air quality, carbon, food systems. So if you guys have worked with any of the food systems, food access teams, some of our people are probably involved in that.
Martin, can I ask a question, Caitlin?
Sure, please do.
So Caitlin, just to give you a little background, the original master plan was funded by a HUD grant, so that's why it's called Colony Park Sustainable Communities. And what I would challenge your office with, and I don't know if you guys have any actual funds to help communities.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't know the answer, but I would love for you guys to actually participate in helping Colony Park come to being, as well as we work with the surrounding neighborhoods, the existing neighborhoods. So it's not just about the new community, but you know, that's where you could really help at this point. So I don't know, but maybe as you guys brainstorm in your office, are there actual funds that could help on existing homes to become more, I mean, there's green building sort of funds. but that's what we focus on in this group is how different departments can actually participate in a meaningful way in this region. So glad to have you around, and that's my challenge.
No, thank you. I love that because we don't have a large budget ourselves, but what we do is we have a lot of access to other departments that do have budgets. So
yeah. Sometimes there's grants, so there will be opportunities, whether it's in the new development or again, things that could happen in the existing communities is a major focus of our project. So
okay.
Yeah. Well, and Caitlin, thank you so much, Laura. You're always on it. I appreciate that. And what we have been talking about since the inception of this plan is to try and create a community, not one divided, but one together. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is if we can do some of the same things in the two existing neighborhoods that can be done in the new community. Or in the addition to our community. I'm not going to say the new, I'm going to say the addition to our community, which is one thing that we've been talking about is solar. How do we get solar to the existing areas now? We know that solar will be a big thing in the on the 208 acres. How do we do that? One of the other things is we have a problem, and I think I heard the gentleman with the water is on here about the asbestos in the pipelines. We also have one area that has issues that had several reports several times off of Johnny Morris and off of Ellington and Ellington Circle, that whole area back there. They were without water again this weekend. They were without water when the pandemic started. We started talking about why this area is always without water since 2017. And so what we've asked, and Ms. Wright requested the public documents as to how many times this one particular area along these streets on Johnny Morris, how many times have they had to have their water cut off because there's a break in the pipe and water is coming up out of the street. And so those are things that we would like for your area to also focus on to see, okay, what can be done about that? It's not going to do much good to build $200,000 homes or $300,000 homes on 208 acres when you have an area that's been here for years and every weekend they're without water. So that's one of the things we really need to have looked at. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Ms. Scott and Laura, because you say the things that I'm thinking, and just as I'm about to click, you start saying it. So thank you so much for getting ahead of the issues. As we're talking to you, Caitlin, and you talked about air quality and water quality, and Ms. Scott talked about the asbestos concrete pipes. Earlier this year, Martin, we had when we're actually having meetings, maybe it was last year, there at City Hall, somebody came and showed us a map of all the water lines and what they proposed that they were going to fix at Lakeside. It was like one street on Lakeside. And at that meeting, I asked if we could get a copy of that so that we could look at our water issues, how our water is flowing, where the breaks were. I never got that back from you, and that would really be helpful in the master plan of it all. So it'd be great to see that. And it's great to see that you here, Caitlin, because we also have air quality issues. We have oil plants. I don't know what they are. Were they tankers come and refill? I think that there's a refinement place right here off Johnny Morris Road. In total, there are three. I think there are three.
3 or 4.
Right here between Ellington and 290. And so I've asked too if somebody could look into the water quality for the fresh water that we have flowing here through our area, because we know it's here, but nobody's really saying anything about it or doing anything about it. And our health problems become an issue in all of this. So now that you're here and you understand all this even better than everybody else, if we could address it in a meaningful process that's easy to understand so that we can see it. And then when we have an issue, we can point it out and make sure that the city sees where the issues are. I think that we were told that if the pipes, we don't need to worry, well, the pipes are breaking, but nobody's really responding to it. Not that they're not coming out and fixing it, because they come out to fix it. They come out to fix a broken water main. But nobody's talking about replacing that main and the rest of the breaks that I've taken pictures of, shared with city employees that work in Austin Water, the city of Austin, and the rest of that. So I just wanted to raise my voice and say that again, because it's our lives that are being threatened here. Our lives, we have tons of cancer patients, everybody with asthma. Yeah, so 208 brand new acres doesn't matter when we have the acreage that we have here of existing homes that have been ignored. So sidewalks, I mean, you know, I know that one's not you, but when we get down to it, I think a lot of the broken water pipes and the rest of that kind of contribute to some of the issues. So thank you for being here, and thank you for listening.
No, thank you for sharing. And you know, I can be one more avenue into trying to get some answers. So see what I can do.
Right.
Glad to have you on the team.
We also have a lot of springs out here that a lot of people don't know about.
Yes.
And they are not being maintained at all. And so we don't know who we need to go to get them to come out and look at the springs. Some of those springs are on the 208 acres. I know they will be looked at, but we also have other creeks and springs that run through the older section of the community that are not looked at, that are overgrown. And so we don't know who to go to on that.
Yeah, so it's probably Watershed is probably where I would start. So I've got a ton of contacts in Watershed. We work with them closely very often. So yeah, I'll reach out and just see where it goes. Yeah.
And I'm gonna post my phone number on here so you can have it.
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
And feel free to give me a call too, because we've been working on it since 2017, which of course it was an issue well before then. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We had a lot of questions about water, and I know we have Javi on the call, Javi Gonzalez is the newly assigned project manager to the asbestos cement water pipe replacement program. I'd like to ask you if you can email us the map that we can send. Do you know about the map that Missy was describing?
So hi, this is Javi Gonzalez. As Martin did mention, I am the new project manager for the asbestos cement pipe project, where we have one section of our project is part of the Colony Park development. I believe this is along Carwell Drive, where we are replacing some existing asbestos cement pipe with new pipes that will not have asbestos in them. So I was not in attendance to that last meeting that Ms. Wright did mention, but I did want to ask specifically, since I wasn't in attendance to that meeting, what was the map that's being asked for? Was it showing just all City of Austin water lines in the area, or just the ones that have the asbestos cement that are being replaced?
It was the one that was showing what we'd like a copy of is one of all the water lines that's in this area. And that's from, I'd say from Johnny Morris to Decker Lane, and also have it marked where the cement pipes are. Okay. We need to find out what's being replaced, what's not being replaced, and why. If it's why it's not being, if it's asbestos. I don't know anybody that would want to know that they're drinking water out of a pipe that has asbestos in it. Although we are told that, you know, the asbestos doesn't get in the water, we don't know that for sure. I come from a generation, we were told that asbestos was not going to bother us. Now we're all dying from cancer from the asbestos. So,
well, I think that the maybe we saw more than one map, because we saw a larger map of, it wasn't just this area. So yeah, it connected more. It may have been all of Austin, because they talked about what pipes were back from the 70s or pre-70s, and so if we could get a better overall view along with one that's focused, I think that would be the best way to go with that.
Absolutely. I can, so I am working with Austin Water on this project, and I can get with them to see how we can get that map distributed to you. I would note that, part of the reason why we're working on this project is because the city of Austin and Austin Water based on water line breakages, have determined that some of these asbestos cement pipes do require immediate replacement. And so while the near-term and long-term plan is, of course, to replace these asbestos cement pipes, the immediate needs, including the project I am working on, are focused on addressing the ones that are reported with the most breakages. So that includes the asbestos cement pipe along Carville Drive.
And I just want to make sure that Johnny Morris is being looked at too, because the breaks are constant. And so if I know that the fact was, they said you shouldn't worry if the pipes haven't been broken. Our pipes are not just broken in one place. They're broken all along this area, and they're constant breaks. I can say with ease, once a month, there's a water main break. And so I don't know what would be more immediately served than that.
And thank you, Ms. Wright, for bringing that up. I'm still, I'm involved in one project, and one of the 5 sections that's involved is the Carville Drive location. The Johnny Morris one, I can look into this and see where, if there are projects associated with that pipe, but I am not involved on the project associated with pipe replacements for Johnny Morris. So that is something I could look into, as well as getting the copy of the map for the city of Austin that shows the general outline of the history of all of the asbestos cement pipes that have been installed in the city of Austin.
Okay, and then like she said, we requested the records for the breaks for the past 5 years for this area, and I mean the Johnny Morris area, which is phase 1 of Colony Park. So I don't know if you may be able to go ahead and look at that. If you already work in that department, you may be able to just see that without waiting, where I have to wait maybe 10 to 15 days to get a response on that. Maybe you can go ahead and check that out. That would be great.
Certainly. That I'm taking a note of that right now to see what information exists regarding the record of water line breaks in the area.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Wright, I have a question on that. Ms. Wright, did you ask that through a public information request?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's also been noted in the council person's office as well. It just so happened that there was a water break when COVID-19 hit Austin really hard, and those people were around there without any water. Austin Water Department had not thought about taking water to them or anything, so we had to contact the councilwoman's office to get them involved in it.
I understand. And the reason I ask is that once it was requested through the public information request, it goes through the law department. The law department contacts the city department, and then the city department assigns the staff member to reply, and those replies have to go back through the law department. I just want to make sure that that the expectations are understood, that flow of information goes back through you get a reply through the public information request.
Right. Well, they have a certain amount of days to answer those replies without having us call the Attorney General's office and getting it through them. So we're familiar with the process.
Okay,
and Martin,
very good.
And Martin, could you share with Javi whoever it was that came and spoke at that meeting? I guess you have notes of that meeting that we had there at that City Hall. where they actually showed us those maps and gave us that limited information, and we haven't heard from him since. If you could share that with Javi, then he would have somewhere a better place to start. And since you're the project manager, maybe you can go ahead and check on that request to make sure that it's being looked at, so that we can get that in a timely manner.
Okay.
Certainly.
I'll follow up with
That would be
Javi
great.
via email offline.
That would be great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Let me
Miss
just write
Wright,
that down in my notes.
Sorry. So you were wanting us to also follow up on the PIR that you submitted to see where that's at?
Yes, since you're managing the project already, if that's an issue here, and
Sure.
it has been. Yes, so
Yes,
still,
so
yeah.
I was just gonna ask, usually when you submit those, they provide an email response back, like there's an automatically generated email and it has the PIR number with it, and that would just be helpful for us to track it down faster.
Let me see if I can get that for you right now. It'll be just a minute. Y'all go right ahead.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to Public Works. Maybe what we'll do here is Colony Loop Drive and associated projects, and that will be Sho and Laura Tubes and Christine Frundle and Laura Cortez, and let's see if anybody else also working on Colony Loop Drive, and whoever wants to take that one on.
And I'd also include Laura Cortez in this now, since we have a adjoining project that will be connecting into Colony Loop Drive with the Neighborhood Partnering Project. But you know, I'm gonna let Laura talk about Colony Loop Drive, since she's been doing a lot of the heavy lifting with the community engagement, and then also knows the most about the permitting schedule. Laura, if you want to take over.
Yeah, is Sho on the call?
Yes.
Because I would, so I am still involved, but Candace Craig in our office is the project manager on that. And Sho, could you just update us? I know there were a few delays on getting the 60% submitted design, but would you be able to chime in on that? And then I can take the rest of the issues with it. So maybe she's not. So if she comes on, she could chime in. So, but basically, for that.
All right, I'm here, Laura.
Oh, okay.
Somehow I'm just having poor connection issues today. I don't know what's going on.
That's okay. If you could just update me too on the submittal of the 60% from Candace to you, and then I'll take the big picture part of it too.
Yeah, so currently the design is at 30%, and we're very close to 60%. We did have some concerns, on pedestrian islands and such. So we've had discussions with Austin Transportation Department, and we've also had 30% design review with Austin Fire Department. So we're trying to collaborate the design with the different departments, making sure we're on the right path. And the project manager with UDG is currently working on 60% design, and we should see that sometime this month.
Okay.
If you want to take over, Laura.
Sure. And for those of you new, my company used to be Urban Design Group, or UDG. We were purchased by Dunaway, so sometimes you'll hear us referred to as UDG. But the project we have two projects that are going for Colony Loop, and the focus is there are two existing sections, and then there's a missing gap section. So the focus is trying to get that road connected and the gap constructed. So we're working on two fronts. One of them is upgrading the existing sections with a design that enhances safety, sidewalks, has some opportunities for landscape, and It also continues a protected bike lane, which is anticipated for the gap section, which is in the middle. We're also working on a permitting as a part of the bigger master plan, 208 acres, is permitting the major road through Colony Park, master plan, 208 acres, but it also designs that missing gap section. So the outcome of all of this is to be able to have a permit. Our anticipated schedule right now would be by the end of the year, so that we have a shovel-ready project, meaning upgrades to existing sections of Colony Loop and then construction of a new section. The challenge to those who are new to the call and to those of us who are veterans, the city is still trying to find the money to actually construct this improvement. But it's a major focus because it connects the west Colony Park neighborhood with the east Lakeside neighborhood and will improve mass transit, as well as these neighborhoods, the existing Colony Park and the school no longer being a single access neighborhood, meaning there's only one way in, one way out. So, and we're coordinating with Dr. Cortez. She alluded to that earlier, that we're looking at, instead of a public meeting, which we hope to have after the 60%, we're doing an enhanced newsletter to get the designs out to the neighborhood in the summer, midsummer, with the hope that there could be an in-person meeting in the fall to answer questions directly and lead into 100% design, like I said, at the end of the year. So it might be complicated to those of you who haven't been with us all through this, but I can answer any questions, but that's basically the overview.
Hey, Laura, what's the price tag on the construction?
You know, Christine, help me. It's been a while since we did that. Can you pull that up quickly? We did a grant at one point, application. Because Ashton's ready. He's pulling out his checkbook right now.
Right? I'll take it.
I just need to know how many zeros.
Yeah. There's several zeros. When we went for the build grant, the cost estimate that we had was about $10.5 million.
I was thinking it was 10.
for all of the improvement, but no, and it does sound like a number, but I think
something happening.
All right.
I think we're good now, but I just want to say, like, we do need the funding. That is a big hurdle that we have to get over. But what we're doing right now is a big part of getting to that funding, because shovel-ready projects that are included in the city's capital improvement long-range planning are much higher for getting funding than those that do not have design or are still in design. So we're really trying to position this project as best we can to get funding through whatever channels are available: grants, bonds, CIP, which stands for capital improvement, which is the infrastructure budget that the city sets on a 5-year basis. So
let me ask this question, because I happen to have seen a post from someone in the mayor's office, and they were saying that during all of the George Floyd and the marches and all of that, and they were talking about, some of the things that that the mayor's office was able to get done, and one of them was having Colony Park community-based planned and planning. So if they can use us in their outreach to say, this is what we're doing, why can't we go to the mayor's office and say, okay, this is what we need, and this is what is holding us up, and how can you help?
I mean, I as always, we appreciate y'all's support in that matter, and it's really the best voice to be heard in the mayor's office and at the council level is the citizens. So I would, Ms. Scott, you've been so helpful writing letters and visiting with council members. I would say the mayor's office is a good place to start to elevate this and let them know that this is an important piece of infrastructure.
You know, also, and I don't speak for EDD, but we're going to have the city step up on possible funding when you take the plan in October. And I'm looking at Christine McGuire there, but I know, you know, after Catellus does their work, the city's going to have to bring some funds to the table, is my belief. So knowing that we need sort of an orchestrated priority at that point too. So I'm not saying don't put the pressure on now, but Christine McGuire, maybe you could just speak to that, of how we pressure available funds and importance and acceleration on the heels of everything that's going on.
I think, can y'all hear me? I apologize for just now being on this call, and I'm so I apologize. I think it is fundamental that Ms. Scott and Ms. Wright, with y'all's leadership in the Colony Park Neighborhood Association, y'all can get meetings we can't, for one thing. And your leadership will create the political will that quite honestly, and I will just be very frank, that this community hasn't seen public investment in many decades. And so with Colony, the development of the 208 acres, it is going to be critical that the city have bond funds that are going to be invested to support area-wide benefit to even make this project happen. And I'm just going to be very frank about it. And this conversation has been, you know, talking about pipes that are old, and it's going to be
I think Christine McGuire froze.
It's frozen.
She froze up, but maybe I'll try to channel her and continue that thought. You know, one of the things that I mentioned earlier on about some of the land planning and the recommendations that we'll take to council are about capital improvement projects, and those capital improvement projects will be for projects that are both on the city's 208 acres and outside of the 208 acres as well, to ensure that the impact on the infrastructure in the area is looked at in a more holistic way.
Right.
Well, let me say this, because this is something that we were speaking about. We talk about the 208 acres, but we also need to focus on the existing groups, the existing communities. And so this is something to me that cannot wait until Catellus goes before the council in October. And we need to start talking to council members, the mayor, the city manager. We need to start sending letters and doing that now. So what I need is an overview of what is being planned for Colony Loop, what the monies would be, how much, an estimate of what the monies would be like, and start advocating for that to be done now, not wait until the 208 acres is being developed, because that could be another 5 to 10 years, and we'd still be sitting here talking about Colony Loop Drive.
Yeah, to your point.
Ms. Scott, I apologize. I'm sorry.
Christine, was that you?
Yeah, I was gonna start.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My technology kicked me out and I went on this tour of like this big white blank space, and now I'm back. So I'm sorry about that. I'm back. Not my day, but what Ms. Scott said, absolutely. Council, in order for Catellus to even sign the MDA, Catellus needs to know that the city is going to be a partner. And so, Ms. Scott, you are absolutely correct. Council needs to commit city staff cannot commit for council, and the package is going to need to include CIP. And you're absolutely right. And another thing that I wanted to say about why shovel ready is so important is that we don't know what's happening at the federal level, but there have been rumors that the federal government would have another stimulus package that would be more infrastructure related. I don't think that is on the table anymore, but it's just kind of a crazy world at the federal level. But regardless, the city and this project needs to be poised to take advantage of every single opportunity. And this project to be bunny ears shovel ready is absolutely imperative for us to be competitive for these funds, if there's stimulus funds coming down from the federal, or it's really the federal level at this point. So I completely support everything that Ms. Scott says and what Laura Toops is saying. And I'm sorry, Ashton, to have interrupted. So I'm just
No, that's fine. We're glad to have you come back and finish. I was just going to emphasize what Ms. Scott was hitting on. It's certainly helpful to have to be able to leverage the development of the 208 acres, the attention's there, et cetera. But the tragedy of this is that gap should have been filled years ago. And one of the things we want to underscore is the long-term neglect of the Colony Park area, and say that these things need to be done if those 208 acres never get redeveloped. These things need to happen. So the infrastructure, the new pipes, the educational enhancements, the retail enhancements, the health enhancements, all of that needs to be done regardless of the 208 acres. And that's a message that needs to be driven across to our elected officials, both at the city level as well as the county level, because they're right there next to us. And the other thing I would just add to what you were saying, Ms. Scott, just a little clarification. The community letter you're referring to didn't come from the mayor's office. It was from Dr. Burnett and Dr. Cruz, co-chairs of his task force on institutional racism, systemic inequities, giving an update. And I actually added in that language as we're talking about some of the movements and awareness that people have about the lack of equity in our area. And I was just highlighting the good work that you and others are doing in Colony Park as an example of what can happen when you really allow the community to be invested in the planning of an area. So it was an example of place-based planning. But I would say to you that there are allies out there that we can utilize to help bring to bear the funds for the work that needs to be completed in Colony Park. So as someone said, it doesn't have to be just government money. They need to be invested, but there's some grants out there and others that I think we can tap into to make sure this gets completed so that 30 years from now, we're not still sitting around having this conversation, or that we've developed an area that's have-nots and have with the old and the new. And that's very important, that when this is completed, it seems a seamless community, not two distinct ones, 208 plus the others.
Yeah, and I think this is such a great conversation, and I just wanted to clarify that we are looking at Colony Loop Drive as a critical piece of infrastructure that has to move forward regardless of the 208 acres, and we have been treating it like that, looking for funding. But you know, as Christine McGuire mentioned, it will be the 208 acres will be a very powerful way to move it forward as well. But we are definitely looking to get this funded regardless of how the development moves forward.
Can I ask a quick? I do want to follow up though, Ms. Scott, on you where you're saying it might not have been the Colony Park community-based plan. Ashton, is what you just said related to that community-based plan? I'm just picking up on Commissioner Trevelyan said there needed to be a Marshall Plan. This was pre-COVID. This is when that entire conversation related to investment in the Expo Center versus the Convention Center. Well, given how Hotel and Convention Center is, that whole thought of an expansion of our downtown convention center vis-a-vis that, I think it just sounds like that desire for infrastructure investment, regardless of us just in general, is absolutely foundational now. And I think very timely that conversation keep occurring in that way. So however we can help contribute to that, I would love for us to help, but really it is the community marshaling around what was that. And one last thing, and this is something that the spirit of East Austin, I think, isn't didn't get to the level of that there was a call for an infrastructure and investment and needing that to occur. I think now would be a great time for, forget the label of Spirit of East Austin, but that whole plan of very focused, equity-focused infrastructure investment in an area that has been long neglected is critical. So I'm just underscoring everything that everybody's saying. Right. It's a really good time.
Yes.
Laura Toops.
Yeah, if I can totally agree. So I want to pinpoint framework we need to start changing to support this, because we have always looked at the 208 acre model can't be supported without public investment. Okay. The reason, if Colony Park had come in, if the city had invested in the capital improvements out in this area, we wouldn't have such a big gap.
Right.
So we need to make sure that as that thing goes to council in October, that we start to change our language around all of this.
Yes.
That it is, and so again, I think this is huge. I think this is a key point right now, and it's valid. So there should be more discussion, just making sure how we bring things forward, that it's, again, I'm just agreeing with everybody, but I want us to all be careful about moving forward that item to council and how that financial analysis is done to make it pencil out for Catellus. So it's I think right.
Add something. And Laura, I thought you were going to say this because we're usually on the same, but that's why for those of you that are joining us and that have heard about the HUD grant, we utilize the 5 census tracts and we talk about the region, because if we don't talk about the region, and if you look at it, it's all the prosperity and growth and investment is about the region and not just the 208 acres. They all pin upon each other, but it's in our language. And so again, just agreeing with what you guys are saying, but about the region.
But I think what the two lawyers are saying is important, that we have to help folks refocus on that, because it's so easy for them to just look at the 208 because it's so new. And so that's what they focus on. And we have to be deliberate about saying, this is regional. This is about the whole area, not just the 208. And so we're going to have to do some re-education, refocusing on folks. Otherwise, they'll miss it and just forget about the existing communities there.
Very good.
And Ashton, you're absolutely right. It's more than one council district.
Ashton, can we move into your update, Ashton?
I was about to say I have to leave for another
Before we go there, I wanted to say something about what you said before, Ashton and Laura, and we're kind of all on the same page, except for those people who are being suggested to be brought to the table. How about we go ahead and get them to the table so that we can get these conversations started? Because it's like they're just kind of dangling out there. But if we bring them to the table so that they can make their proposal, so that we can see where we can take it. If we don't do that, it's nothing. And I also wanted to say, I hope that we're able to get Mr. Weeks and Mr. Daniels in. I think last week that they had to leave before they were able to speak. Thank you, Ashton.
No, thank you. That's.
Why don't we cue them in?
I'll be very quick. I'll be very quick because I have to leave for another meeting where I need to speak. But to your point, Mitzi, I think now that the NDA is signed, it'll be easier to have some of those collaborative conversations that many folks have been wanting to have for the last 2 years, et cetera. So I know there are folks that have been waiting to do that. So briefly on our Colony Park, so I'm Ashton with Equidad ATX. Two things I'll mention is the preservation and anti-displacement initiative that we're working on, which I think fits into the very conversation we've been having, is that we don't want to see the 200 acres come in and existing neighbors or residents be pushed out for a variety of reasons that generally come when you see redevelopment. So we're partnering with Austin Revitalization Authority, the UT Entrepreneurship and Community Development Clinic, as well as the Colony Park Lakeside CDC, and working on an initiative with that and others as well. Jacob, who is a resident in Lakeside and owns a couple of duplexes as well as living there. So more on that to come. We're still working through the possibilities in that, talking to the city about funding to make sure that they're invested as well. On Live Well, Viva Bien, that's what we used to call Equidad Express. That's the mobile ecosystem that we were going to debut on April 15th, and everyone knows what happened prior to April 15th. We had COVID, so things had to shut down. But partners such as Austin Public Health, City of Austin, and the Bookmobile, thank you so much, Roosevelt. Central Health has taken a big lead on that. They've lent us Melissa Cepeda as our project manager, Community Care, Texas Capital Bank, Texas Workforce Solution in March that they wanted to participate, Cap Metro. And the whole idea was to bring services to areas in the Eastern Crescent like Colony Park, where you have a desert of retail, financial services, library services, et cetera, as opposed to telling folks they had to wait till the brick and mortar was built, that we would bring the services to them on a consistent, scheduled basis. We were going to start with the pilot with Colony Park and Creedmoor, but again, COVID came. So right now the conversation is how do we revamp, redesign in light of COVID, what it look like.
Bless you.
And we've had some conversations. Council Member Harper Madison and Mayor Pro Tem Garza heard what we're doing, and so they recognize the need, and so we're in conversations with them. So I'll bring you an update on how that transpires and when that may restart in light of shelter in place.
All right, I appreciate it. We may have to pick up the pace just a little bit.
Thank y'all so much. Sorry, I have to leave.
It's a tough thing because we generate good conversation. They're deep, meaningful conversations, and we only get a little bit, and we all like to talk about them in more depth. But we have a lot of people in the meeting who want to have an opportunity to update the community, and so we'll need to be a little bit briefer to respect everybody's time. We'll move on to the library.
Thank you, Martin. We provided a program of work to Martin and his team on what what it would look like if we had space in the central health space. And I'm so appreciative of Stephanie and her team for even thinking about allowing us to be in a space like that. So we're appreciative of that. But on a broader step, I do want to say that libraries are very important, and we believe in getting the word out about any issues that are happening in our community. We like to hear all views on what libraries mean to community. We look at libraries as being a space for equity and the People's University and making sure that we have a level playing field for everybody. And so it's important that we have library services in this area. And one of the things that's going on in our city and around the country now is we're talking about systemic racism. And when you look at, we want to focus on the police department, but it's systemic racism throughout our city. And we're talking about broken pipes and things of that nature. That is part of the issue. And, we have to make sure that we're able to educate all of our people about, what's going on in our city and not just focus just on the police department. These issues that we're talking about now, clean water, lead paint, asbestos and all that, those issues, those are important issues. When you look at COVID-19 impacting African American and Hispanic American the most, all of that is part of the systemic racism that's been a part of the city and this country for a long time. And so I'm hopeful that we're able to get library services in there. And I want to say that we don't have any money, but I'm really hoping that somewhere down the road we can find some money so that we can be in this space.
All right. Go ahead, Christine.
I don't want to belabor to the.
You're muted.
I don't know. It's part of the infrastructure of a community. In defining what infrastructure is, it's also health service, library services, and basic goods and services that underpin a community as a complete community. So I just want to underscore, Mr. Weeks, that even, you know, pipes and poles in the ground, like heavy wet things in the ground, is infrastructure. But also, I think from an advocacy standpoint, it's also helping the city leaders inside the city and outside the city broaden their perspective of infrastructure that underpins a community too. It's something you well know, but I'd also like to think, if we're thinking of a comprehensive CIP package, thinking bigger, not just for the 208 acres, but even for the whole underpinning of the 5 census tracts, that library and public health would be good. I think that's a really great language to begin to talk about for this area. So I totally agree, but I also see library as part of basic infrastructure too. So I totally agree. Not that you need me to agree, but that's good.
All right. Appreciate that. We're going to move on to Austin Public Health.
Great. And again, I completely echo Mr. Weeks's statements about the issues that we have in systemic deficits that we have related to race, and how we've been unable to meet those needs even now, years and years after intentional systemic constructs were put in. So it's a ongoing issue and need, and we have to do better. Specifically for Austin Public Health, I would be remiss if I don't lead with COVID, since we are, the lead agency for COVID-19. One of the things I wanted to put in the chat is a save the date, and I think there may be some more information coming, but a save the date specifically for a community conversation around COVID-19 that's happening this Saturday via WebEx at 10 o'clock, and it is intentional for populations of color to provide feedback directly to the response. As the response geared up, there were a lot of constructs that were put in place to try to be supportive for any population that was specifically vulnerable to COVID-19. As we've seen the spread of COVID-19 in our community, we've again seen, as we've seen across the nation, disproportionately, that the disease has disproportionately affected our populations of color. And so we have got to make sure that as we continue with this response, because it will be several months, if not a full year, of us being in response mode and then into recovery for COVID, that the response continues to be informed by community and is intentionally trying to meet the needs of all individuals affected. So I shared that in the chat, and I encourage all folks to participate. It was the specific way that conversation is being built out. Again, we're doing things very quickly because it's response mode, but it is intended for community to lead and provide insight to the response, and so that those that are directly responsible for determining how we're going to respond COVID needs to take that feedback in and determine how that helps to inform and change the practice that we have, or ensure that the practice that we are doing is appropriate. That being said, specifically for COVID, again, we are looking at additional testing options to expand what we're currently doing on the ground. We, in partnership with Community Care, are doing quite a bit of testing, and with our other health system partners are doing quite a bit of testing. However, that doesn't meet the needs of all people. And so we have we're looking at multiple different strategies to help improve testing all the time. We're bringing on another healthcare provider partner that can do in-home testing. So there would be no barrier to anyone getting to testing. We don't have that up and running yet, but that is hopefully will be in the mix very soon, so that people can go online to our public platform and apply and register to get a test. And that would be an option that's available, as well as more specific intentional pop-up testing around the community to help to supplement the other standalone testing that we have all over. So again, our director, Stephanie Hayden, has been very intentional about wanting to be in tune to what the needs are and where the gaps are happening. And we know part of the gaps are what kind of healthcare we have available, particularly in our communities of color. So making sure that we are shoring that up. COVID also is coming to bear as we deal with the heat situation that we have. And so we're looking at the current heat plan. We know that heat plan is being activated because we're hitting triple digits throughout this week. And our cooling centers that we normally would have available, and I know library and Parks and Rec and also public health, we typically provide cooling centers. Right now, some of the staffing is not what it typically is because of COVID, and then also how people would be able to access those cooling centers is somewhat different because of COVID-19. And so Austin Public Health is working to inform the heat plan as to what we need to do to ensure that COVID infection control measures are in place so that people can safely access those cooling stations and be able to have a place to cool off, particularly in those scorching hours that it gets so hot. The other pieces I just want to, and I know I want to be cognizant of the time, we, along with library and other parts of the city, have also been looking at what services can we build into the new development and providing space estimates and what that looks like to provide co-located services into the new clinic space that I know Central Health is leading on. And so that really has been a really nice partnership to kind of see what level of service could we have. Looking at what kind of we built out at Southeast Health and Wellness as potential option and a footprint, but also looking at other things that we've built out in the city, such as the Montopolis project that we have, and other things to see what kind of co-located services make sense for the space that's designed there, so that we can really maximize as much as possible and bring as many services we can. And then the other piece, because of our typical method of doing mobile outreach and promotion has changed because COVID's given us a new normal. We've worked to look at how we can promote existing services and provide folks how to access those services during this time, because our method of promotion, our method of being present in the community is a little different. And so we're working with Central Health as well on putting that package together and really pushing out like where these services are and how folks can access. And so that's all for now for public health.
All right, thank you very much. Why don't we just move right into Central Health? There was some similarity or just mentioned to Central Health. We'll just move right into Central Health.
Yeah, sure. So thank you very much, and appreciate the time today. There's two things that I'd like to highlight that we'll be bringing to our Eastern Travis County Subcommittee tomorrow. That's chaired by Manager Shannon Jones. One is coming back to the temporary relocation, the relocation of the temporary resource center to Overton Elementary, making sure that we have the right person as a program manager for that area, and realizing that they're going to be transitioning to the larger health and wellness center. Now, I think it's important to note that that transition time has been compressed, because with us buying land directly from the city, that expedites that process. And so the amount of time that we'll have in the temporary resource center before we open up the health and wellness center is obviously going to decrease. So that's an important point to note. But back to the subcommittee, what we'll be doing is seeking guidance and then coming back out to the community to re-engage in that process of hiring someone. I think what we had originally done is we had a process on the back end where we brought the final candidates in to meet with the community. That got disrupted because of COVID. And so after talking with Ms. Scott, we made the decision, all right, let's put this on hold, come back to it. Well, now we're coming back to it, but I think that we have this opportunity to bring the community in, even on the front end of the process and in the middle, and not just have it, be there on the, looking at the final candidates. And so I think that's going to be important. We're going to be talking to the subcommittee about that. Second is talking about the engagement processes for the larger health and wellness center. And it's not only just the construction per se, but it's also the programs that Cassie had mentioned, but making sure that the board understands, this is the process that we want to engage in with the community as we move towards this larger health and wellness center. So those are two key issues that we'll bring up. We'll also provide some general updates on other aspects of Eastern Travis County service expansion. And then lastly, on the issue, if I could, that, it's kind of thinking back to the prior conversation and all these different elements, both inside the 208 acres, but also outside the 208 acres. I think maybe there's a future conversation around maybe getting some kind of resolution from not only the Central Health Board of Managers, but the City Council as well as the County Commissioners Court that in principle ties all these things in, because there's a lot of moving parts out there and a lot of documents flying around. But just to get a principles-based and not just aspirations, but also these are the things that we need to be doing for this community. I think it memorializes it, it reinforces it, and it provides us some consistency. And again, I'm not trying to create another document. I know I'm just throwing this idea out completely unvetted, but that struck me while I was just listening to the conversation. And also it holds us all accountable too. So I'll pause there, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And also we have Stephanie McDonald and Janet Allen on the line as well.
Mike, just really quickly, Ms. Scott and I had a conversation on Friday, and I just wanted to put this out for other folks who are in the community or interacting with people living in Colony Park, just in light of everything happening in the nation right now around police presence and law enforcement. Ms. Scott called, and we had a quick but meaningful conversation about folks seeing a police officer at our COVID-19 testing sites. And so those officers have been there primarily for traffic control, and also community care has requested them just for, they're setting up sites at Hancock and at schools and just different places that haven't traditionally been their clinical operations sites. And so they're primarily there to assist in that way. And I just also wanted to reiterate that if there's ever a situation where that's not the case, or a community member encounters a situation with law enforcement that is not helpful, then please let us know. We're working in partnership with the Emergency Operations Center, but we just want to be really cognizant of the moment that we're in right now culturally and make sure that folks still feel comfortable accessing testing.
Thank you.
All right,
I have a question about the testing, real quick. Is the testing parameters, or are they more flexible? Because before, I think it was just one member per household.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
you had to have symptoms. Has that changed?
Yes, ma'am, it's changed. We're actually translating a press release right now about the fact that community care is expanded to asymptomatic testing. So the requirements have changed completely. So now we're able to test more folks. The availability is expanded. So you no longer need to have symptoms like cough, fever, or shortness of breath. You can just go and receive a test. So the capacity is expanded. I'm going to send that out in an email once we have that press release translated.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. We have, I think, 3 groups remaining. So we're going to go just a little bit over time. If anybody needs to leave right now and they haven't provided an update, just raise your hand and we'll put you in the queue next. And otherwise, I'll just go down the list. All right, we'll go with Scott in PARD update then.
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, Ms. Wright, you've officially scared me to death that we're going to have a pool filled with asbestos water now. I had no idea you guys had that kind of issues with the pipes.
Wow.
But that's good to know, so thank you.
I thought everybody in the city knew. The employee, the Austin Water knows, but
okay.
Yeah,
well,
now we know.
They should know. No, that's good to know. Makes me worried about my infrastructure costs now, and if I have enough money and what I might have to repair and replace and fix for them. Anyway, so yeah, real quick, I'll try to go fast as I know we're over. So construction or third-party project manager has been signed, so they're on board, ready to roll. The architect engineering solicitation is due next week, in 1 week. Ms. Scott is going to be sitting on the panel with me and several others to evaluate, and that'll happen, I think, about the end of the month, and we are going through the logistics of that. And the construction manager solicitation is under review right now as well. That should go out later this month, and then the Ms. Cortez's contract is under review as well. I'm finally getting to that as well. So things are moving, and I'm moving as fast as I can, or as others will let me. So I'll be happy to take any questions. Sorry that was so fast, but I didn't want to be mindful of time.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate the update. Food access. Carol.
Hi, good morning. I don't have too much to update on at this moment. We had a really good conversation, as Ms. Scott and Laura mentioned, around the community video project with UT. I think that would be a really interesting component of grocery representing the food access issues and to grocery representatives. And I'm still reaching out to grocery store representatives, initiating contact there. HEB had a really interesting announcement around they've committed $1 million to addressing race and equity. I've reached out to them about that. I don't know any details, but I'm hoping that I can at least have a conversation with them about what that might mean and where we could take that, hopefully. And I'm looking forward to hopefully participating in the tour on Saturday. And getting to know the neighborhood a bit better. So I've been invited to that. So I don't have anything else, but I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see. It looks like we're losing some people that I thought would be up in the queue next. All right, seeing none. Does anybody? Did I miss anybody that's still on the line? All right, that looks like all of the questions. Let me make sure. I'll check the chat, see if there's anything that I missed in the chat. Looks like I have a question from Ms. Wright about making the recording and the notes available. By the notes, do you mean the chat here, or do you mean the normal notes that we send out?
The normal notes, just in case they don't show up on the recording. So if this in its entirety is available, because once you sign off, it's gone. So that's why, that was one of the reasons why I asked you if you could record the meetings from now on, because if not, it's all lost once you turn it off, turn the camera off.
Mm-hmm.
Or once you leave the meeting.
I understand. It's my first time recording a meeting, so I need to know where the file lives and how to distribute that. And I'm anticipating there'll be a large file. We'll probably have to put it up on a cloud service and allow it with a link for download.
I think that it's saved in Teams. These means save in Teams, but then whether or not the information has been saved there is the question. So if it's there and saved, which you would do, then it would be accessible without putting it out on the cloud or something.
Great. It looks like Caitlin has done this before and has offered to help me with that. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
That's something we've been working on and have figured out a workaround. So yeah.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Well, good. I can definitely do it. I just haven't done it yet. So if there's nothing else, I think we've gone through our agenda items, and appreciate everybody staying on just a little bit longer than the time we designated for this. And I'll reach out to you, Caitlin, via email to help me with that. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Bye.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Ms. Scott? Oh, she's gone. Yep.